Hey, wheelchair lady, you can't camp out here all day. This ain't a charity shelter. Officer Jenkins loomed over Keisha Washington, deliberately blocking her sunlight with his bulky frame. He gestured dismissively at her wheelchair like she was trash he needed to sweep away. 8 months pregnant in her wheelchair, she sat quietly outside Meridian Plaza's flagship store, 3 designer shopping bags at her feet. Her black maternity dress from Nordstrom probably cost more than Jenkins made in 2 weeks. The Cartier watch on her wrist caught the afternoon sunlight. But Jenkins saw what he expected to see, another problem to solve. "I'm waiting for my ride home," Keisha replied, her voice calm but firm. Jenkins sighed dramatically for the growing crowd of onlookers. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be, sweetheart." Across the street, a teenage girl lifted her iPhone, finger hovering over the record button. Have you ever been judged by your appearance before anyone bothered to learn who you really are? 8 months pregnant in her wheelchair, Keisha Washington checked her phone. The rideshare app showed 12 minutes until pickup. 12 minutes to endure whatever this was becoming. "Officer, I'm simply waiting for my transportation," she said, keeping her voice level. Her designer maternity dress from Bergdorf Goodman whispered against the leather seat. 3 shopping bags sat at her feet: Tiffany, Michael Kors, Sephora. Jenkins wasn't listening. His partner, Officer Rodriguez, shifted uncomfortably beside him, clearly wishing he was anywhere else. "Rodriguez, call for backup," Jenkins barked into his radio. "We got into an uncooperative vagrant situation at Meridian Plaza." Vagrant. The word hung in the air like a slap. Across the street, 17-year-old Maya Sinclair lifted her phone. The Instagram Live button beckoned. She'd seen enough injustice videos to recognize one brewing. Her finger tapped the screen. "Going live outside Meridian Plaza," she whispered to her followers. "Y'all need to see this." The red recording dot appeared. Viewer count: 1. Store security emerged from the glass doors like sharks smelling blood. Patricia Holbrook, the day manager, followed close behind, her heels clicking against concrete with military precision. "Officers, thank you for responding so quickly," Holbrook said, not even glancing at Keisha. "We've had complaints about this situation." Situation. Another carefully chosen word that stripped away humanity. Keisha's phone buzzed. A text message flashed across her military-grade screen. "Command meeting moved to 1400 hours. Clearance required." She swiped it away quickly, but not before checking her tactical watch, a Garmin Tactix 7 that few civilians would recognize. "Ma'am, I need to see some identification," Jenkins demanded, extending his hand like she owed him something. "Why?" Keisha asked simply. "Because I said so." Jenkins' voice carried the authority of someone who'd never been questioned. "This is private property and you're trespassing." Maya's viewer count hit 127. Comments started flooding in. "Is this really happening? Someone call the news. This is so wrong." Holbrook stepped closer, speaking in the loud, slow voice people use with children or the mentally impaired. "Honey, you can't just sit here blocking our entrance. Our customers need access." The entrance stretched 20 feet wide. Keisha's wheelchair occupied maybe 3 feet of space, positioned carefully away from foot traffic. But facts didn't matter now. "I understand," Keisha said quietly. "I'm not blocking anything. I'll be gone." She checked her phone again. 10 minutes. Rodriguez finally found his voice. "Jenkins, maybe we should just..." "Should just what?" Jenkins snapped at his partner. "Let every homeless person think they can set up camp wherever they want?" Homeless. There it was, the assumption that explained everything in Jenkins's mind. A pregnant black woman in a wheelchair could only mean one thing to him. Maya's Instagram Live hit 300 viewers. She angled her phone to capture Keisha's obvious designer clothes, her expensive handbag, the shopping bags that screamed affluence. The contrast would be impossible to miss. "This is disgusting," someone commented. Look at her clothes. She's obviously not homeless. But Jenkins was building his case now. Ma'am, pregnancy doesn't excuse trespassing, sweetheart. And that attitude isn't helping your situation. Attitude. The word black women knew too well. Code for existing while not submissive enough. Keisha's purse sat open beside her wheelchair. Inside, partially visible, was what looked like a government-issued ID card with an official seal. The edge of a Department of Defense logo peeked out, but the camera angle made it impossible to read. Her phone buzzed again. Another encrypted message. Senate hearing prep confirmed 1500 hours. Classification briefing required. She glanced at it briefly, then looked back up at Jenkins with infinite patience. Officer, I haven't broken any laws. I'm waiting for my husband to pick me up. Your husband? Jenkins laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. And where exactly is this husband? The question dripped with skepticism, as if the idea of someone loving and caring for Keisha was inherently unbelievable. Maya's live stream exploded to 856 viewers. Her comment section was on fire. Someone please tell me they're calling this in. This cop needs to be fired. She's clearly a paying customer. Look at those bags, store security whispered among themselves. One pulled out his phone, probably texting management. The situation was escalating beyond what anyone had planned. Holbrook tried a different approach. Look, I'm sure you're a lovely person, but this is causing a disturbance. Our customers are complaining. Keisha looked around. The customers were mostly people stopping to watch the drama unfold, phones out, recording everything. The real disturbance was Jenkins himself. 8 minutes, she said softly, checking her ride status again. Rodriguez stepped forward. Ma'am, is there somewhere else you could wait? Maybe inside the... Inside? Holbrook cut him off sharply. Absolutely not. Our policy is very clear about loitering. The word hit like another slap. Loitering. The crime of existing in public while not white enough, not wealthy-looking enough, not acceptable enough. Keisha's phone screen lit up with a call. The contact name showed only initials, DC. She declined it quickly, but not before Jenkins noticed. Who was that? He demanded suspiciously. You dealing drugs or something? The accusation hung in the air like poison gas. Maya's viewers gasped in the comments. 1,243 people now watched this nightmare unfold in real time. That was my husband, Keisha said, her voice still unnaturally calm. Sure it was. Jenkins smirked at Rodriguez like they shared some inside joke about lying pregnant women. 7 minutes left. 7 minutes until this ended, one way or another. But Keisha Washington had been preparing for battles like this her entire adult life. She just hadn't expected to fight one while 8 months pregnant, sitting in a wheelchair outside a department store. The gathering crowd had no idea what they were about to witness. 6 minutes remaining on Keisha's rideshare timer. The situation had drawn a crowd of nearly 30 people, phones raised like modern torches in a digital coliseum. A black sedan pulled up with government plates. Vincent Torres stepped out, adjusting his expensive suit. District manager for Meridian Plaza's entire Southwest region. Annual salary $347,000, according to the corporate directory. His arrival meant someone upstairs was taking notice. What's the status here? Torres demanded, striding toward the group with corporate authority radiating from every step. Jenkins straightened, sensing an opportunity. Sir, we're dealing with an uncooperative individual who refuses to vacate private property. Maya's Instagram Live hit 3,847 viewers. Comments flooded the screen faster than anyone could read. This is getting crazy. Where's the news media? Someone needs to stop this. Torres surveyed Keisha with the calculating gaze of a man who'd spent 20 years in retail management. His eyes took in her wheelchair, her pregnancy, her dark skin, and made instant calculations about liability and public relations. Ma'am, I'm Vincent Torres, district manager for Meridian Plaza Corporation, he announced formally. We have the legal right to refuse service to anyone and ask non-customers to leave our premises. Non-customers. Despite the 3 shopping bags bearing his company's logos sitting right beside her wheelchair. Sir, I am a customer, Keisha replied evenly. I just made purchases in your store. I'm simply waiting for my transportation. Torres pulled out his phone, scrolling through what looked like legal documents. Our corporate policy is very clear. No loitering on company property without management approval. The word loitering, again, like a weapon being sharpened with each use. Keisha's phone buzzed. Another message, this one marked urgent. NSC briefing moved to 14:30. Confirm attendance. She glanced at it and quickly swiped it away, but Torres noticed the interaction. Ma'am, I need you to put the phone down and provide identification immediately, he commanded. 5 minutes left. Rodriguez spoke up hesitantly. Maybe we could just wait until her ride. Rodriguez, Jenkins barked. We don't negotiate with trespassers. The crowd was growing restless. A woman in yoga pants stepped forward. Excuse me, but she's obviously a paying customer. Look at those shopping bags. Torres turned to address the gathering crowd with practiced corporate speak. Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate your concern, but this is a private security matter. Please disperse for your own safety. Maya adjusted her phone angle, making sure her 4,500 viewers could see everything. A notification popped up. Sarah Sinclair, local news blogger with 47,000 followers, had joined the live stream and was sharing it to her audience. The momentum was building like an avalanche. Officer Jenkins, Torres said, I think we need to escalate this. She's clearly disturbing our business operations. Disturbing business operations. The shopping center hummed with normal activity, families walking, teenagers laughing, couples holding hands. The only disturbance was the circle of authority figures surrounding one pregnant woman. Keisha checked her watch. The tactical Garmin that Torres mistook for a fitness tracker. 4 minutes and 30 seconds until pickup. Sir, she said calmly, I understand your position. In 4 minutes, I'll be gone and this will be resolved. 4 minutes too long, Torres replied. Jenkins, what are our options here? Jenkins cracked his knuckles theatrically. Well, we could cite her for trespassing, disturbing the peace, maybe disorderly conduct. Each charge hung in the air like a threat. Maya's comment section exploded. This is insane! She's done nothing wrong. Pregnant woman in wheelchair. A local news van turned the corner, Channel 7's logo bright against its white paint. Sarah Sinclair had made the call. What started as a simple Instagram live was becoming a media event. Torres saw the news van and his demeanor shifted. Corporate damage control mode activated. Perhaps we can resolve this more quietly, he suggested, but his voice carried less conviction now. Keisha's phone rang. The display showed only DC Secure. She declined the call, but Torres was watching every move now. Who keeps calling you? He demanded suspiciously. My husband, Keisha replied with infinite patience. Jenkins laughed harshly. Right. Your mysterious husband who can't even pick you up on time. 4 minutes left. The circle of authority figures had tightened around her wheelchair like a noose. Jenkins to her left, Rodriguez looking increasingly uncomfortable to her right, Torres directly in front, Holbrook flanking with store security. Maya's viewer count hit 6,200. The local news crew was setting up their equipment across the street, telephoto lens focused on the scene. A middle-aged black man in the crowd called out, Young lady, are you okay? Do you need help? Torres whirled around. Sir, please step back. This is a security situation. Security situation. The euphemisms kept multiplying, each one designed to make oppression sound official. Actually, the man replied loudly, this looks like harassment to me. Other voices joined in. She's not doing anything wrong. Leave her alone. This is discrimination. The crowd was turning. Torres felt it shifting like sand beneath his feet. Corporate training had prepared him for many scenarios, but not a viral social media incident with live news coverage. Keisha's phone buzzed with a text. Package secured. En route. ETA 3 minutes. She read it quickly, then looked up to find Torres staring at her screen. "What kind of package?" he asked, his voice suddenly sharp with suspicion. "My husband is picking me up," she said simply. Jenkins stepped closer, invading her personal space. "Ma'am, you've been acting suspicious since we arrived. Constantly checking your phone, getting mysterious calls. We have reasonable suspicion to detain you for questioning." Detain. The word sent ice through Maya's live stream audience. 7,100 viewers now watched in real time as the situation spiraled towards something darker. Rodriguez finally found his backbone. "Jenkins, she's just sitting here. She hasn't committed any crime." "Haven't committed any crime?" Jenkins turned on his partner. "Trespassing, disturbing the peace, suspicious activity. That's 3 charges right there." Suspicious activity. Being pregnant, black, and disabled apparently qualified. The news crew had their camera ready now. Sarah Sinclair approached the edge of the crowd, phone recording, building her story in real time. 3 minutes left on the timer. 3 minutes until this nightmare ended or escalated beyond anyone's control. Torres pulled out his corporate phone, speed dialing what looked like legal or security. His conversation was hushed but urgent. Words like liability and viral video drifted through the air. Keisha sat perfectly still in her wheelchair, hands folded over her 8-month belly, watching grown men work themselves into a frenzy over her simple existence in public space. She thought about the irony. Tomorrow morning, she would sit in a classified briefing room, advising senior military officials on national security matters. Tonight, she would probably be trending on social media as another example of discrimination in America. But these men surrounding her had no idea who they were really dealing with. 2.5 minutes left. Maya's Instagram Live broke 8,000 viewers. The comment section had become a river of outrage, support, and demands for justice. Screenshots were being shared across Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. This was no longer just about one pregnant woman waiting for a ride. This was about to become something much bigger. 2 minutes remaining. Maya's Instagram Live had exploded to 12,000 viewers. The comment section moved too fast to read, a blur of outrage and solidarity. Screenshots flooded Twitter with hashtags. Hashtag pregnant woman harassed, /Meridian Plaza, shame, Black Lives Matter. Keisha Washington sat perfectly still in her wheelchair, hands folded over her pregnant belly. 8 months of carrying new life, and these men treated her like a threat to public safety. "Ma'am," Jenkins said, his voice taking on an ominous tone, "I'm going to need you to step out of that wheelchair for a search." The crowd gasped. Even Rodriguez looked shocked. "Officer," Rodriguez said quietly, "she's 8 months pregnant. You can't—" "I can and I will," Jenkins snapped. "Suspicious behavior warrants a search. She could be hiding drugs, weapons, anything in that chair." Torres nodded approvingly. "We have to think about customer safety." Maya's viewers exploded past 15,000. The comments became a wall of fury. "This is insane! Someone call the FBI! She's pregnant! This is America in 2024! Sarah Sinclair pushed through the crowd, her professional camera rolling. Channel 7's news van had positioned itself for the perfect shot. This was no longer local news, this was national. 1 minute, 30 seconds left. Keisha looked down at her designer purse, a $3,200 Hermes bag that Torres probably couldn't afford on his district manager salary. Inside, nestled between her wallet and prenatal vitamins, was the truth about who she really was. "Officer Jenkins," she said quietly, her voice cutting through the chaos with unexpected authority. "Before you continue, I think there's something you should know." Her tone had changed. The submissive patience was gone, replaced by something that made Rodriguez straighten instinctively. Military bearing has a sound all its own. Keisha reached into her purse with deliberate precision. Her movements were economical, practiced, the kind of muscle memory that comes from years of high-stakes briefings where every gesture matters. She withdrew a leather credential case, black with an embossed gold seal. The Department of Defense eagle was unmistakable. "Dr. Keisha Washington," she said, opening the case with a snap that cut through the crowd noise like a gunshot. "Naval intelligence, security clearance, secret, sensitive, compartmented information." The words hit Jenkins like a physical blow. His hand froze halfway to his radio. Torres's face was drained of color. Even the crowd went silent, processing what they'd just heard. Maya's phone shook in her hands. 18,000 viewers and climbing. The comments shifted instantly. "Oh my God! Naval intelligence? These cops are so screwed." Rodriguez was the first to recover, his military training kicking in. He'd served 2 tours in Afghanistan. He recognized the credential format, the security clearance levels. This was real. "Ma'am," Rodriguez said, his voice completely different now. "I apologize. We didn't know." "You didn't know because you didn't ask," Keisha replied calmly. "You saw a pregnant black woman in a wheelchair and made assumptions." She held up her phone, showing a photo that made Torres step backward. The image showed Keisha in naval dress uniform, standing beside a man in military dress blues covered in ribbons and insignia. Navy SEAL trident, bronze star, purple heart, decorations that spoke of sacrifice and service at the highest levels. "Lieutenant Commander Darius Washington, United States Navy SEALs," she continued. "My husband, currently assigned to Special Operations Command. He's picking me up from our shopping trip." The silence was deafening. 28 people stood frozen, phones recording every second of Jenkins's public humiliation. Sarah Sinclair moved closer, her professional instincts on fire. This wasn't just a discrimination story anymore. This was a career-making exclusive. "Dr. Washington," Torres stammered, finally finding his voice. "We had no way of knowing." "You had every way of knowing," Keisha interrupted, her voice still calm but carrying steel underneath. "You could have asked for identification before assuming I was homeless. You could have noticed my designer clothes, my expensive purchases, my obvious education and articulation. Instead, you chose to see what you wanted to see." Maya's viewer count hit 22,000. Local news stations across the country were picking up the feed. This was going viral in real time. 1 minute left. Keisha's phone buzzed with another encrypted message. "Oversight Committee briefing confirmed Oro 800 tomorrow. The Senate Armed Services Committee requires your testimony on Project Seahawk." She glanced at it, then looked back at the circle of authority figures who had, moments ago, been ready to arrest her. "Gentlemen," she said, "in less than 1 minute my husband will arrive to take me home. Tomorrow morning I'll be briefing members of Congress on classified naval operations. This afternoon I was simply a pregnant woman buying baby clothes and waiting for a ride." Jenkins's hands shook slightly. He'd threatened to arrest a federal intelligence officer. His career was probably over, and everyone in America with an internet connection was about to watch it happen. Torres pulled out his phone, frantically texting what looked like crisis management. His corporate overlords were probably already drafting press releases and legal strategies. "Dr. Washington," Rodriguez said formally, "on behalf of the Metro Police Department, I sincerely apologize for this misunderstanding." "Officer Rodriguez," Keisha replied, "you tried to de-escalate. You showed respect. That speaks well of your character and your training." She turned to Jenkins, who looked like he wanted to disappear into the pavement. "Officer Jenkins, you assumed I was a vagrant, a drug dealer, a threat to public safety. You threatened to forcibly remove me from my wheelchair. You did all of this while I sat quietly harming no one, waiting for my husband to pick me up." Maya's live stream exploded past 25,000 viewers. The comments were a river of schadenfreude and justice. "Get him! This is beautiful! Navy wife justice! Jenkins is done!" 30 seconds left. A black Chevy Tahoe with government plates rounded the corner, moving with the controlled precision of a trained operator. The vehicle stopped directly in front of the crowd, engine running. The driver's door opened. Lieutenant Commander Darius Washington stepped out. 6'4", 240 pounds of pure military muscle. His civilian clothes couldn't hide the warrior underneath. The confident bearing, the situational awareness that swept the crowd in seconds, the quiet authority that made everyone step back instinctively. His eyes found Keisha first, checking for injury with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd rescued people from worse situations. Then his gaze moved to Jenkins, Torres, and the crowd of officials surrounding his pregnant wife. "Everything all right here, Dr. Washington?" he asked, his voice carrying the kind of calm that preceded violence in lesser men. The seal trident tattoo on his forearm was visible as he crossed his arms. Combat deployments, classified operations, life and death decisions, all visible in the way he held himself. Jenkins looked like he might faint. "Just a misunderstanding, Commander Washington," Keisha replied, never taking her eyes off Jenkins. "These gentlemen thought I was a vagrant who needed to be removed from the premises." Darius nodded slowly, processing the scene with tactical precision. 28 civilians, multiple recording devices, news crew, social media live stream with 28,000 viewers and climbing. "I see," he said simply. 2 words that carried more threat than 1,000 obscenities. Maya's phone was shaking so hard she could barely hold it steady. The comments were moving too fast to read, but she caught fragments. "Navy SEAL husband. Jenkins is dead. This is the best thing I've ever seen. Justice!" Torres tried corporate damage control. "Commander Washington, please understand this was all a simple misunderstanding. We had no idea." Darius held up one finger, not rude, not aggressive, just a gesture that stopped all conversation instantly, the kind of authority that came from leading men in combat. "Gentlemen," he said, his voice carrying across the crowd, "my wife is 8 months pregnant. She's been shopping for our baby. She was waiting for me to pick her up. She's a decorated naval officer with a security clearance higher than most people in government." His eyes moved from face to face, memorizing features with the precision of someone trained to identify targets. "And you treated her like a criminal." The silence stretched like a held breath. 31,000 viewers watched live as American justice balanced on the edge of a blade. But Keisha wasn't finished yet. She had one more card to play. "There's one more thing," Keisha said, her voice cutting through the tension like a surgical blade. She pulled out a different phone, one that made Torres's eyes widen in recognition. Government issued, with encryption capabilities that cost more than most people's cars. "Tomorrow morning at Aero 800, I testify before the Senate Armed Services Committee regarding naval intelligence operations. Senator Patricia Murray personally requested my expertise on Project Seahawk, a classified program involving contractor oversight and military spending accountability." She paused, letting that sink in. "Meridian Plaza Corporation holds $847 million in federal contracts. Defense commissary services, military family housing furnishings, overseas base retail operations." Torres went pale. Those contracts represented 23% of his company's annual revenue. "My testimony tomorrow includes recommendations on contractor compliance with federal non-discrimination policies, particularly regarding service to military families." Maya's viewer count hit 35,000. The comments were exploding. "She's testifying to Congress? Meridian is so screwed. This woman is legendary." Darius stepped closer to his wife's wheelchair, one hand resting protectively on her shoulder. His wedding ring caught the light, a simple gold band engraved with the seal trident and their wedding date. "Dr. Washington," Torres said desperately, "surely we can resolve this quietly. This has all been a terrible misunderstanding." "Mr. Torres," Keisha interrupted, "this stopped being quiet the moment it went live to 35,000 people. This stopped being a misunderstanding when Officer Jenkins threatened to forcibly search a pregnant federal intelligence officer." She gestured to the crowd, to Maya's phone, to the news cameras. "This is now a documented case study in institutional bias. Tomorrow, when I sit before Congress, I'll have real-world evidence of how military families are treated by federal contractors." Jenkins finally found his voice, though it came out as barely a whisper. "Dr. Washington, I didn't know." "Officer Jenkins," she replied, her tone carrying the authority of someone who'd briefed admirals and generals. "Ignorance isn't a defense. It's the problem." Sarah Sinclair pushed forward with her microphone. "Dr. Washington, would you like to comment on camera about what happened here today?" Keisha looked at her husband, who nodded slightly. Command decision made. What happened here today happens to military families, to black families, to disabled individuals across America every single day. The only difference is that most of them aren't recorded live by 35,000 witnesses. She gestured to her shopping bags, her designer clothes, her expensive wheelchair. "I have every privilege American society can offer. Education, economic status, military rank, security clearance, a decorated seal for a husband. And still, I was treated like a criminal for existing in public while black and disabled." The crowd was completely silent now. Maya's live stream had become appointment viewing for a growing national audience. If this can happen to me, imagine what happens to military families with less protection, less privilege, less ability to fight back. Darius helped her transfer the shopping bags to their vehicle. The simple gesture was protective, intimate. A husband caring for his pregnant wife after a traumatic experience. "Will you be filing formal complaints?" Sarah Sinclair asked. Keisha smiled for the first time all afternoon. It wasn't warm. "Ms. Sinclair, I'll be briefing Congress tomorrow morning. I think I'll let them decide what complaints need to be filed." Maya's phone showed 42,000 viewers now. This wasn't just viral. This was a cultural moment. As Darius helped her into the passenger seat, Keisha turned back to the crowd one final time. "Gentlemen," she said, addressing Jenkins and Torres directly, "you had an opportunity today to see a pregnant woman as a human being deserving of basic dignity. Instead, you chose to see a threat that needed to be neutralized." She paused, letting the words settle. "Tomorrow, Congress will hear about your choices." The Tahoe pulled away from the curb with military precision, leaving behind a crowd of stunned witnesses and two men whose careers had just ended on live television. Maya finally ended her live stream after 45,000 viewers watched the vehicle disappear around the corner. The silence that followed was deafening. The Washington's black Tahoe had barely disappeared around the corner when Vincent Torres's phone erupted with calls. Corporate headquarters, legal department, crisis management. Everyone who mattered at Meridian Plaza Corporation was suddenly very interested in what had happened outside their flagship store. Maya Sinclair finally lowered her phone after ending the live stream that peaked at 47,000 viewers. Her hands were shaking from adrenaline. She'd just documented what would become one of the most viral discrimination videos of the year. "Holy shit," she whispered to herself, then immediately started uploading the recording to YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. The internet was about to explode. Sarah Sinclair from Channel 7 was already going live with breaking news coverage. "This is Sarah Sinclair reporting from Meridian Plaza, where we've just witnessed an extraordinary confrontation involving a pregnant Navy intelligence officer who was racially profiled by police and store management." Torres stood frozen in the dispersing crowd, his $400 suit suddenly feeling like a costume. His phone buzzed with a text from CEO Margaret Whitfield. "Conference call in 10 minutes, bring lawyers." Officer Jenkins looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. His radio crackled with static as dispatch tried to reach him. "Unit 47, please respond. We're getting calls about an incident at Meridian Plaza." Rodriguez answered instead. "Dispatch, this is Unit 52. We need a supervisor at our location immediately." Within 15 minutes, the scene had transformed again. Captain Lisa Morrison arrived with two internal affairs investigators. Corporate lawyers materialized in black sedans. The Meridian Plaza regional manager flew in via helicopter from Dallas. But the real pressure was building online. #NavyWifeDiscrimination was trending nationwide on Twitter. The video had been shared 15,000 times in 20 minutes. TikTok users were stitching Maya's live stream with their own commentary. Instagram stories exploded with screenshots and outraged captions. Most importantly, someone had tagged Senator Patricia Murray's official Twitter account. Senator Murray, chair of the Senate Armed Services Committee, responded within 30 minutes. Deeply disturbed by reports of discrimination against military families. Dr. Washington's scheduled testimony tomorrow will address these exact issues. Full investigation warranted. The tweet was retweeted 50,000 times in an hour. Torres's conference call with corporate headquarters lasted exactly 7 minutes. When it ended, his face was white as paper. "We're fucked," he said to nobody in particular. The math was brutal and simple. Meridian Plaza Corporation. Annual revenue, $2.34 billion. Federal contracts, $847 million, 36% of total revenue. Military commissary exclusive deals, $312 million annually. Defense family housing contracts, $89 million annually. Overseas base retail operations, $446 million annually. All of those contracts included specific anti-discrimination clauses. Violation could trigger immediate contract review, suspension, or termination. Dr. Keisha Washington wasn't just a pregnant woman who'd been mistreated. She was a federal intelligence officer with top-secret clearance who would testify before Congress in 18 hours about contractor oversight and compliance. The story was already being picked up by major news networks. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, ABC, everyone wanted the exclusive on the pregnant Navy officer discrimination story. By 6 p.m., #Meridian Plaza shame was trending in all 50 states. The Washington Post's investigative team had already pulled Meridian Plaza's federal contract records. The New York Times was interviewing discrimination law experts. Military Times was preparing a front-page story about bias against service families. Torres received his second call from corporate at 6:47 p.m. This one lasted 3 minutes. When it ended, he was no longer district manager. "Effective immediately, you're suspended pending investigation." Margaret Whitfield's voice had been ice-cold through the speaker. "Legal will handle all media inquiries. Don't talk to anyone. Not press, not police, not your family. We're in full damage control mode." Meanwhile, Officer Jenkins was discovering what under investigation meant in the social media age. Internal Affairs. Captain Rebecca Martinez didn't mince words. "Jenkins, in 30 years of police work, I've never seen a more textbook example of racial profiling. You threatened to arrest a pregnant federal officer for sitting in a wheelchair outside a store where she'd just spent $800. The body cam footage was damning. Every word, every gesture, every assumption was recorded in high definition. Jenkins' threat to forcibly remove her from the wheelchair would play on news broadcasts for weeks. "She was acting suspicious," Jenkins protested weakly. "Acting suspicious how?" Martinez asked. "By checking her phone while waiting for a ride? By remaining calm while you harassed her? By having encrypted government messages because she's a naval intelligence officer?" Rodriguez, meanwhile, was being praised for his attempts at de-escalation. His body cam showed him repeatedly trying to calm Jenkins down, attempting to redirect the situation, and ultimately showing proper respect once Keisha's credentials were revealed. The viral video had created two very different narratives for the two officers. But the real corporate showdown was happening in boardrooms across Dallas, where Meridian Plaza's executive team was calculating the cost of one afternoon's discrimination. Stock price, down 12% in after-hours trading. Social media sentiment, 847,000 negative mentions in 6 hours. Congressional inquiry, already announced for next week. Federal contract review, initiated automatically by Dr. Washington's testimony. Legal exposure, class action discrimination lawsuits being filed in 3 states. The PR firm hired for crisis management delivered their assessment at 9 p.m. This is a Category 5 corporate disaster. You need immediate, dramatic action to prevent total brand destruction. Their recommendations were swift and brutal. Immediate termination of Torres and all involved management. Public apology from CEO Margaret Whitfield. $500,000 donation to military family support organizations. Complete policy overhaul with mandatory bias training. Independent oversight of all customer service interactions. Direct outreach to Dr. Washington with compensation offer. But even those measures might not be enough. Dr. Washington's congressional testimony was scheduled for 8 a.m. In 12 hours, she would sit before the Senate Armed Services Committee with a real-world example of how military families were treated by federal contractors. The optics were devastating. A pregnant Navy intelligence officer, 8 months pregnant, harassed while shopping for baby clothes, threatened with arrest for sitting in a wheelchair. Senator Murray had already announced expanded hearings on military family discrimination. The Pentagon's Contractor Compliance Office was launching a formal review. The Justice Department's Civil Rights Division was monitoring the situation. At 11:30 p.m., CEO Margaret Whitfield made the decision that would define her company's future. She picked up her phone and dialed a number she'd hoped never to use. Dr. Washington, this is Margaret Whitfield, CEO of Meridian Plaza Corporation. I know it's late, but I need to speak with you about what happened today. The conversation lasted 47 minutes. When it ended, both women understood that tomorrow's congressional testimony would determine not just the fate of discrimination policies, but the future of a $2.34 billion corporation. The next morning's headlines were already being written. Navy officer testifies on discrimination hours after viral harassment. Pregnant military wife's story rocks corporate America. From shopping trip to congressional testimony, a military family's fight for dignity. Maya Sinclair's Instagram live stream had done more than document discrimination. It had triggered a reckoning that would reshape how military families were treated across America. The real question wasn't whether change would come. The question was whether Meridian Plaza Corporation would survive to see it. Torres sat in his empty office at midnight, cardboard boxes scattered around his desk, watching his 20-year retail career disappear into viral infamy. Jenkins sat in his kitchen, badge and gun confiscated, wondering how 42 years of life had led to becoming the face of police bias on national television. And somewhere in a secure government facility, Dr. Keisha Washington was preparing testimony that would change everything. The corporate showdown was just beginning. 3 months later, the changes were undeniable. Officer Jenkins sat in his car outside the unemployment office, scrolling through job listings that all seemed to require background checks. His termination from Metro Police had made national news. Every Google search of his name led to the video of him threatening a pregnant Navy officer. He'd applied for 43 security jobs. 0 callbacks. The Internal Affairs investigation concluded that Jenkins had violated 6 department policies and 3 federal statutes regarding discrimination against protected classes. His police certification was permanently revoked in Texas and flagged in the national database. Rodriguez, meanwhile, had been promoted to Community Relations Supervisor, a new position created specifically to prevent incidents like the one that destroyed his partner's career. His body cam footage showing attempts to de-escalate had become training material for police academies nationwide. Vincent Torres discovered that corporate disgrace follows you everywhere. His LinkedIn showed former district manager with a 3-month gap that employers noticed immediately. The retail industry is small. Everyone knew what happened at Meridian Plaza. His mortgage company had started foreclosure proceedings. His wife had filed for divorce. His 20-year career in retail management was over, ended by 30 minutes of documented bias. But the real changes went far deeper than individual consequences. Meridian Plaza Corporation had implemented what became known as the Washington Protocol, a comprehensive anti-discrimination framework that other major retailers quickly adopted. The new policies were revolutionary. Mandatory training. All 47,000 employees completed 40-hour bias awareness training within 90 days. Failure to complete meant immediate termination. No exceptions. Digital monitoring. AI-powered customer service monitoring analyzed interactions for discriminatory language or behavior. Real-time alerts went directly to corporate headquarters. Direct hotline. Military families could report discrimination incidents directly to the CEO's office through an encrypted app. Average response time, 47 minutes. Economic accountability. Store managers' bonuses were tied to diversity metrics and customer satisfaction scores from protected groups. Federal oversight. Monthly audits by Pentagon contractor compliance officers became standard. Random inspections could happen anytime, anywhere. The financial impact was staggering. Meridian Plaza's stock had recovered, but the company spent $127 million on policy implementation, training, legal settlements, and monitoring systems. However, their federal contracts not only remained intact, they expanded. Dr. Washington's congressional testimony had praised companies that took immediate, meaningful action to address discrimination. Meridian Plaza became the gold standard for military family-friendly retailers. CEO Margaret Whitfield's personal phone call to Dr. Washington had been the turning point. The 47-minute conversation resulted in a partnership that transformed both women's careers. Dr. Washington, Whitfield had said during that late-night call, "I can't undo what happened to you, but I can make sure it never happens to another military family at any of our locations." The agreement they reached became a model for corporate accountability. $250,000 donated to the Military Family Dignity Foundation, founded by Dr. Washington. Personal apology from Whitfield, delivered privately to the Washington family. Dr. Washington appointed to Meridian Plaza's newly created Military Family Advisory Board. Annual $500,000 commitment to military spouse employment programs. The congressional testimony itself had been devastating and transformative. Dr. Washington spoke for exactly 18 minutes, using the Meridian Plaza incident as a case study in institutional bias against military families. "Senators," she had said, looking directly at the committee, "when a pregnant federal intelligence officer can be threatened with arrest for shopping while black and disabled, we have a systemic problem that requires systemic solutions." Her recommendations became federal law within 6 months. The Military Family Protection Act required all federal contractors to implement anti-discrimination training and monitoring systems. Companies could lose contracts immediately for verified discrimination incidents. Enhanced civil rights enforcement gave military families special protected status under federal anti-discrimination laws, with expedited investigation and prosecution. Contractor Accountability Database tracked discrimination complaints across all federal contractors, creating a permanent record that affected future contract awards. The broader impact rippled through American society like waves from a stone dropped in still water. Maya Sinclair's original Instagram live stream had been viewed 2.3 million times across all platforms. She'd been interviewed by CNN, featured in Time magazine's 30 Under 30 list, and offered a job as a social media coordinator for the ACLU. Her documentation had inspired the Record and Report movement, encouraging people to live stream discrimination incidents for immediate accountability and evidence preservation. Sarah Sinclair's news coverage won a regional Emmy for outstanding achievement in news reporting. Her follow-up series on military family discrimination led to policy changes at 12 major retail chains. But the most meaningful change was personal. Dr. Keisha Washington gave birth to Hope Justice Washington on a Tuesday morning in February. She was healthy, beautiful, and born into a world slightly more just than the one her mother had experienced 3 months earlier. Lieutenant Commander Darius Washington took paternal leave to care for his wife and daughter. The Navy SEAL's commanding officer personally ensured no bureaucratic obstacles interfered with family time. The Washingtons' story became required reading at military leadership schools, business ethics programs, and civil rights law courses. It demonstrated how individual courage, combined with social media documentation and institutional accountability, could create lasting change. Most importantly, it proved that discrimination thrives in silence, but dies in the light. 1 year later, Dr. Keisha Washington stood before a packed auditorium at the Naval Academy, her daughter Hope sleeping peacefully in Lieutenant Commander Darius Washington's arms in the front row. "Midshipman," she began, "leadership isn't just about commanding troops or ships. It's about recognizing the humanity in every person you encounter, especially when they don't look like you, sound like you, or share your experiences." The story of that afternoon outside Meridian Plaza had become legend, not just in military circles, but across America. It proved that real change happens when ordinary people refuse to accept injustice as normal. Maya Sinclair, now a civil rights documentary filmmaker, had tracked the ripple effects of her live stream. 47 similar incidents had been resolved using what people called the Washington Protocol: immediate documentation, viral amplification, and systematic accountability. The Military Family Dignity Foundation, started with Meridian Plaza's settlement money, had grown into a national organization with 23,000 members. They'd successfully advocated for anti-discrimination policies at 127 major retailers, 89 restaurant chains, and 67 service providers. Most importantly, they'd created a network where military families could share real-life stories of both discrimination and dignity, ensuring that Black stories and touching stories of resilience reached audiences who needed to hear them. The Foundation's annual scholarship program had helped 156 military children attend college. Hope Washington's college fund was already established, but dozens of other military kids now had opportunities their parents never imagined possible. Rodriguez, now Chief of Community Relations for Metro Police, had transformed his department's training program. Bias incidents dropped 73% in 2 years. His document and de-escalate protocol had been adopted by police departments in 43 states. Even Officer Jenkins' story had become instructive. His fall from authority to unemployment served as a cautionary tale in law enforcement academies nationwide. Sometimes the most powerful lessons come from spectacular failures. Corporate America had learned that discrimination wasn't just morally wrong, it was financially devastating. The Meridian Plaza effect entered business school curricula as a case study in how social media could destroy decades of brand building in hours. But the deepest impact was cultural. The phrase, "Have you ever been judged by your appearance before anyone bothered to learn who you really are?" had become a rallying cry for dignity movements worldwide. It forced uncomfortable self-reflection that led to genuine behavioral change. Dr. Washington's congressional testimony was still quoted in debates about military family protection, contractor accountability, and civil rights enforcement. Her calm, data-driven approach had shown that intellectual strength could be more powerful than anger or violence. The story resonated because it contained universal truths about power, prejudice, and the possibility of redemption. It demonstrated that life stories, particularly Black voices uncut by corporate filters or media spin, could illuminate injustices that official statistics missed. Most importantly, it proved that change was possible when good people refused to stay silent. "Your voice matters," Dr. Washington concluded her Naval Academy speech. "Your story matters. Your willingness to stand up for dignity, yours and others, can literally change the world." She paused, looking out at hundreds of future military leaders. The question isn't whether you'll encounter injustice. The question is what you'll do when you see it happening. Have you witnessed discrimination that others ignored? Have you seen someone judged unfairly because of how they looked, where they came from, or what assumptions people made? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. Your voice could be the catalyst for change in your community. These real-life stories, especially touching stories from military families, disabled individuals, and communities of color, remind us that progress happens one documented moment at a time. Hit that share button. Let your friends see what courage looks like when it's quiet, determined, and unstoppable. Subscribe to Black Voices Uncut for more stories that prove dignity isn't negotiable, justice isn't optional, and change is always possible when we refuse to accept discrimination as normal. Together, we document. We persist. We overcame it.